Good afternoon or good morning, whatever time you happen to be listening to us. This is the MTG Dudes. I am Ned,
This is Joe.
and we're bringing you a list today of blue creature cards that are a must in any commander deck. Now, let's preface by saying blue does cover a lot of different tribes: zombies, pirates, merfolk, rogues, so we're just going with the ones that are utility creatures in pretty much any deck you would want to build.
So let's jump into it. First one we got is the Peregrine Drake. Now, this is an honorable mention because for me, this is one of those that I want to put in my top five, but it's kind of a utility in almost any deck, but it's also not the main piece of any combo. Or it is a main piece. How do I say that? It's a main piece of a combo, but it's not necessarily the top card. Um, it is four and a blue. It is a Drake. It's flying, and when Peregrine Drake, I cannot talk, enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. That's always handy. He's a 2/3, and it's always handy because you play him, and pretty much you have another pretty much free play with him in play.
Yeah, he's a good call. He's part of an infinite mana combo, but yeah, as a standalone, not that great of a card.
So your honorable mention is which one?
I think it's the Prodigal Sorcerer.
Gotcha.
I just like this guy. He's been around since the beginning of Magic the Gathering. It's a very utility sort of effect. Two colorless and a blue. Prodigal Sorcerer, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. They've printed a lot of cards that do the same effect for similar or the same mana cost over the years, but I like the original because he's been around forever and he's really handy against small creatures. And yeah, he's not great, but always useful.
It's nice. You actually built me a deck one time, or either you built it or we did it together. I don't remember which. But yeah, the purpose of the deck was to get a bunch of these guys and just to paint the crap out of anything and everything I could. Um, it was lots of fun when the stuff wasn't being killed because they are just 1/1 creatures.
Right, that's the downside, and that's why he's only an honorable mention, because he's a 1/1 and he only does 1 point of damage.
So we're gonna go on to our top five.
Hello.
My daughter wanted to say hi.
What do you need?
I was saying hi.
Did you hug?
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Alright, continue.
This was thank you.
I know.
We're having technical difficulties with communication with my daughter. So, no big deal. Sorry. So my number one, now I'm actually going to do my list backwards, but my number one is actually Thassa Deep Dwelling. She is handy in so many ways. She is a legendary enchantment creature. You can use her as a commander. She's a god for 3 and a blue, 6/5. She is indestructible. As long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, she is not a creature. And at the beginning of your end step, exile up to one other target creature you control. Then return that card to the battlefield under your control. And you can pay 3 and a blue to tap another target creature. Her blinking ability is tremendously great. And that's what I like her for the most, is her blinking ability. To be able to just blink so many things, there's so many things that when you're in the battlefield, and I'll discuss one of the biggest things. And the other one is the Peregrine Drake. But when they enter the battlefield, obviously they do different things. And when she bounces them, they're in a battlefield trigger. So like the Peregrine Drake, it will let you untap 5 more mana. So it keeps mana open for you or whatever things do. But it's very nice. You can also tap another target creature. So if somebody goes to attack you, you can turn around and pay to tap it so they can attack you with it.
Yeah, she's useful for all the reasons that you've said. The indestructible is a very, very likable effect because they're a lot harder to get rid of. They can still be exiled, but you're not going to kill them with damage or any what I call the instant death effects, like a royal assassin, for example.
It's a very, very fun card. All right, your next one.
Let's talk about the other Thassa.
Yep.
God of the Sea. 2 colorless and a blue. Indestructible. Has the same rules for the devotion. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Pay a colorless and a blue. Target creature you control cannot be blocked this turn. This is an amazing effect. You're getting the scry every time without any kind of an activation, and then you pay 2 to make something you control unblockable. So if you have enough mana, you could bring it with 2 or 3 or more than that even, and there is nothing your opponent can do to block them. It's guaranteed, well, not guaranteed, but it's an easy way to do damage. Just make your boys unblockable. And for 3 mana, a 5/5 with indestructible is a really good value.
We're going to jump to my next one, which is Deadeye Navigator. This is one of the combo pieces with Peregrine Drake, and again with another card that I'm going to list later. It is 4 and 2 blues, so it's a little bit bigger, for a 5/5. It is a soul bond, so you may pair this creature with another unpaired creature when either enters the battlefield, and they remain paired for as long as you control both of them. That in itself is what makes this card so valuable. It's almost a broken combo, honestly. And then as long as Deadeye Navigator is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has 1 in a blue. Exile this creature, then return it to the battlefield under your control. And again, I keep bringing up the Peregrine Drake because that's one of the pieces that you can do that. And that gives you, that's an infinite mana combo. So you, and it's a well-known one, but it's one of those where you can just, you blink it, it gives you 5 mana. You blink it, gives you 5 mana. And I guarantee you, since you're only paying 2, you get infinite mana from that. And then you should be able to do so many things with your deck because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't use this combo myself, but I have seen it do some truly awful things.
So then we're going to go ahead and go to your next one.
Sphinx.
We'll hit that one.
Sphinx of Magosi. 3 colorless and 3 blue. Flying 6/6. It's a little bit heavy on the mana cost, but when you see what it does, I think it's worth it. You pay 2 colorless and a blue, and you get 2 effects out of this. You draw a card, and your boy gets a +1/+1 counter. That is a permanent +1 and an extra card in your hand for 3 mana. It's hard to top that in terms of value.
My next one is Gaddock the Wizened, and you're going to have to give me a minute because we're having technical difficulties again.
Okay.
Or still.
Sorry, I got to plug my phone in.
Yep, there's that.
And then I got to readjust.
Yep.
We're not having a good time with this video. All right, so anyway, my next one is Gadwick the Wizened. He is X and 3 blue. What?
What about that T?
He's not blue.
He's not a monocolor.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, Gadwick the Wizened is X and 3 blue. It's a legendary human wizard. And when he enters the battlefield, you can draw X cards. Whenever you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. It is a very nice card. Mostly I like him because of the card draw ability. I don't have very many cards in hand, or I'm down to my last card. It's always nice to just draw a bunch of cards. One of the key pieces to what blue does really well is draw. And one of them. And so when you're out of cards and you play this boy, your X is whatever you want it to be. It's always nice to have that option. And then whenever you cast a blue spell, you can tap target non-land permanent and opponent controls. If you play enough spells, let's say you have a bunch of counter spells or card draw spells or whatever, you're constantly tapping their stuff. So it can leave them wide open. It can leave you wide open. You can tap their land so they can't do anything. I mean,
No,
there's
you can't.
non-land, yeah, you're right. But still, there's so much stuff you can do with this card.
I agree. I don't often use him myself, but I certainly see how he can be important to a deck. The drawing X, always a great effect, however you're doing it, be it a creature or a sorcery, and tapping things at the very, very least is going to irritate your opponent, and maybe that'll throw them off their game.
That is a big key to what you want to do is keep them off their game. Next one. Let's go ahead and hit that one.
Hull Breacher. This guy is fun. He is both a merfolk and a pirate. That's two of the tribes blue does very well in. Two colorless and a blue, and he has flash. So that means you can cast him at instant speed. If an opponent would draw a card, except for the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, instead, you create a treasure token. I remember playing a game against you. I threw this boy down turn 2 or turn 3, and you gave up on the spot because you didn't have any means of getting rid of him, and without deck acceleration, you were essentially dead in the water. He is a very irritating card, and while your opponent's deck is stuck in the mud, you can just do 55 or faster because you're making treasure tokens. He works really well with things that force your opponent to draw, like the Howling Mine and what's the blue enchantment? It's escaping me right now.
There's a bunch of them. I can't think off the top of my head, though.
Anyway, if you're forcing your opponent to draw cards, nope, you don't get to draw cards, but I will make a treasure instead. It's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, the deck you're talking about is my one I call my one permanent. I actually got that from Commander's Quarters, and then I redid it to make it so it's very effective. And the deck is all about drawing as I need. The deck is fast. The deck is very efficient. But yeah, when you threw down Hull Breacher, my deck is based on draw. So I draw until I get what I need. Hull Breacher comes down. You're getting tokens. I'm not getting the draws. My deck ain't doing a thing. So yeah, there's no point in me playing when I can't do a darn thing what my deck's supposed to do.
Yep,
so,
that happened.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I was dead in the water. So that's all I've got to say with that one because I don't like that card.
Yeah, and again, he covers two tribes, the merfolk and the pirate. So if you play either one of those or just blue in general, you can stop your opponent from drawing extra cards. And in Commander, that's one thing everybody tries to do is have deck acceleration, and he prevents that from happening. Good card.
And then I tell you to go home. All right, so my next card is Alfedo Alchemist. This was actually one of the ones that we put into the Prodigal Sorcerer deck that we was talking about. I've used him in a couple other decks, but this is why he's on the list, I think, more than anything else. I've used him in a couple others, but he is one of blue. He is a wizard, and you tap him to untap target artifact or creature. Now, the second part is you can morph him, I'm not big on the morph. I don't have anything that really capitalizes with it, so that's really not a big deal to me. There is decks that can utilize that, but just his untap the or tap him to untap target artifact or creature. It could be Soul Ring, it could be Chromatic Ori, heck, it could be an attacking creature or an untap or of yours that you need as a blocker. I mean, it's just numerous what you can do with them.
Yeah, and another potential use for him is the Temple Bell, because that will force a draw for you and for the opponent, and then you tap him to untap the Temple Bell so you can do it again if you need to.
Mm-hmm. That's really good for a mill strategy too.
Agreed.
So your next one, I gotta look at that closely. Let's go with that one.
Murmuring Mystic. This is 3 colorless and a blue. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue bird with flying. He's a 1/5. Now, what's nice about this, we usually talk about Commander, but because this guy is not legendary, if you're using him in a different format, you can stack your deck with 4 of him, cast 1 spell, and that's going to net you 3 or 4 birds, depending on how many you've got on the field. It's a tremendous card, and blue does flying things really well, and they've got numerous spells, instant and sorcery. There's the counter spells, there's card drawing, there's tapping permanents. So if you're playing blue, you're probably doing at least one of those things, and this guy's going to give you a bird every time you do it.
He goes really well with another card that we're going to talk about later called Talron. I think that's your last one. Right. But yeah, that's what they do is you play a spell, they create creatures, and yeah, we'll get to the other one later. The next one we're going to get to is my last one on my list, Agent of Treachery. I kept going back and talking about what Thassa is good with and what Deadeye Navigator is good with. And this is the other card I kept referring to. I said I'll get back to later in the video. This is probably my top card. He's expensive, but he's my top card for the obvious reason once I go over it. But he's Agent of Treachery, 5 and 2 blue, a human rogue. And when Agent of Treachery enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. That is any permanent. Land, creature, whatever. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. In my experience, a lot of times once he comes out and he starts doing his thing, you don't get the card draw because usually it's a concede. I've had that so many times, and I've gotten to the point where I could draw, I just happen to forget. But you throw him in, and then you have the Deadeye Navigator. You pair him up with that. You can do that numerous times. And then with Thassa Deep Dwelling, that also gives you a chance to be able to do that on your end step. So, in essence, if you got 9 mana, you can essentially play him, blink him at the end step, and you have 3 of somebody else's stuff. Very nice card. And again, the card draw is not the big deal. It's the fact you're stealing stuff. And I had a deck where I played with them, and I stole virtually all of the guy's lands, and then I was also able to steal most of his creatures, and I left him with everything else he had, which really didn't do him anything at that point. And he let it play out, but he couldn't do anything. He had no creatures, he had no lands, he had no mana.
Another really good use for this guy is if your opponent has a planeswalker, because you can take that and start using it to fulfill your own ends and stifle what they're trying to do. Planeswalkers are some of the most obnoxious game mechanics in Magic, so if you get a chance to take one from an opponent, do it, because it will, at the very least, slow them down.
Yeah. So then that brings us to our last one, which I believe is this one.
Talrand. 2 colorless, 2 blue. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. Very similar to the, I just forgot his
Murmuring
name.
Mystic.
Murmuring Mystic, but it's a 2/2 Drake instead of a 1/1 bird. It's slightly better creature, but because he's legendary, you can only have one of him on the table at a time. But again, blue has so many instant and sorcery cards that do different effects. He's incredibly useful for almost any play style. So, strongly recommend him and the Murmuring Mystic if you're playing blue.
And the other nice thing about Talround Sky Summoner is he's also legendary, so he can be your commander. So, yeah, he's just really utility, but a very, very well utility, especially if you're playing blue. You can't miss with him. There are a lot of commander decks that are built around him. And EDA Track is one of those sites where if you look him up, they'll give you a bunch of card recommendations that will do exactly what you want to do. So,
that's all we've got for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe, and share some ideas of blue creatures that you like to use if you feel so inclined, and we will see you next time.
it's been a blessing. Peace and blessings.